We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Ty. So first of all, Ty wanted to apologize for the confusion regarding the speaker as theater's layout. It is indeed 19 feet long and 12 feet wide. So we were talking about that last week because we were a little confused. He's planning on having 2 rows of seats, only 2 recliners each. But he initially thought he'd prefer the back row to be his primary row. Thanks to our discussion, he now realizes the back row will be too close to the back wall to properly enjoy a 7.2.4 setup. That's right, because he was going to be like 2 feet off the back row. I was like,
that's what he was saying.
That's not going to work. So now he can either plan to move those seats forward or make his front row his primary seat. So he says, thanks, you're welcome. Make your front row your primary seat. I
would in this setup because it looks like he's going to go for some beanbag chairs in front of the front row and then have a front row and a back row. Now, I'm fine with the back row still being 2 feet away from the back wall and having slightly compromised sound.
Yeah, that's fine.
If your primary row where you sit most of the time is that front row, that all works out. It also makes the screen size thing easier to deal with, in my opinion. So yeah. I would sit in your front row.
So his new question is whether there are any pitfalls to mounting his projector on the back wall instead of on the ceiling, and building a custom Hushbox around that rear shelf mount. He's strongly leaning towards an Epson 5040 UB projector. Any pitfalls to mounting his projector on the back wall instead of on the ceiling? The pitfalls would be whether or not you can
get the screen
size you want.
Yeah.
That's where it comes down to.
Again, because the Epson that he's looking at has such a long zoom range. Now, it has some depth, so his room is 19 feet long, but the lens is going to be, I would say, at most 18 feet from the screen.
Right.
So you plug that into the projector calculator over at Projector Central, and you can have as small as about an 85-inch diagonal screen all the way up to, it was some crazy size that probably wouldn't even fit in his room anymore. So I'm assuming you're not going to have a screen smaller than 85 inches. In this setup.
Do not have a screen smaller than 85 inches in this setup.
So it should be fine. Now, we should point out, there are some instances when if you were looking at a projector that doesn't have the incredibly huge zoom range available that this Epson does, then that could be a concern. Because you might not be able to get the screen size you want if you're dealing with a low-cost projector that only has a 1.2 times zoom range or something like that. Then you have to be very careful. But in this case, should be absolutely fine. Now, the Hushbox thing. We don't hear about Hushboxes as much anymore. They're not as common.
We don't. So he's thinking about building this Hushbox. So those you don't know, this is the idea that you have a kind of a sealed box, which is open to something to give it some air ventilation, because if not, your projector will burn up in there.
A lot of people use like large diameter PC fans, so that they're very, very silent, but at least they still move the air in and out of that box. Right,
and then this keeps the noise from the projector away from your ears. I'll be honest with you, I don't really think that you're going to need one.
I know. The 5040 is quite a quiet projector.
You're not going to, especially if you're sitting in that second row and you put that projector on the back wall, you're going to be like 6 feet away, 8 feet away, something like that.
Now, maybe in the back of his mind, he's thinking he is still going to sit in the back row. Now, if you were only 2 feet off the back wall, in the back row, the projector on a shelf right behind you, it's not going to be silent. Like, you're not going to hear the fan.
I know. You're going to hear it when you start up the thing. The movie's going to start, and you're going to forget about that thing. Yeah. Yes, it will occasionally. I would highly recommend living with it first.
Try it, yeah.
Before you go through
committing to building the Hushbox,
But yeah, I would just put on that back shelf. I build a shelf back there or something like that. Mount it to the back wall. Go with that. Live with it for a little while, and then say to yourself, okay, it's going to take me this amount of money, this amount of time, this whatever aggravation to build this Hushbox. Is it worth it? And then that. So you'll be able to answer that question at that point.
Now, I would say on that rear shelf, try to put it fairly high. Even though it's a shelf on the back, try to put it fairly high, because again, the 5040 UB, tons of lens shift range, so not going to be a problem. But that way, if you are sitting in the front row and you stand up, you still might block the light path a little bit, but it'll be less so. You know, it won't be the gigantic shadow blocking the entire image. So that type of thing. So try to get it up high. If you are going to end up building the Hushbox, the main concern is the glass. Because if you're going to have a sealed box, then the light still needs to get out somehow, so you have to have glass. Now, what most people who build Hushboxes, they go to Edmund Optics for Edmund optical glass. You're going to spend a not insignificant amount, but it's worth it because what you don't want is for that glass to act as a mirror whatsoever. You don't want any of the light reflecting off the inside of that glass and going back into the projector's lens. That destroys your contrast. So you want very, very clear glass with very, very little reflection. It's worth, because you only need a window. The window only needs to be big enough for the projection image to come out of it. That's all you need. Right. And the only other consideration is how you're going to control the projector. The easiest is a physical IR wire, right? Yeah. That's by far the easiest, or an IR extender that you can put directly, one of the little flashers that you literally stick onto the IR receiver. Because, if it's in a box, it's not going to be able to see the IR commands. So those are the things to think about, but they're absolutely all things you can overcome.
Right. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.